Do you have a webcam, Bart?
It's not part, Tim. Yeah, you're making it sound like fart, but it's part.
Parth.
Now, get on.
Parth.
Yeah, all right, all right. That's more like it. Yes.
Hello and welcome to another episode of JoomCast, the podcast that features people who are part of the Joomla community and discovers how they got here, what they contribute to Joomla, where they're going, and a whole bunch more. My name is Tim Davis of Cybersalt and the Basic Joomla Tutorials YouTube channel, and I'm here with my co-host Chetan Madan of JoomDev, who are behind the wildly popular Asteroid framework for Joomla and the page builder for Joomla, JD Builder. Hi, Chetan.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I am doing all right. I am at home, as you
Yeah.
are at home.
We
Now,
all are, right?
yes. Now, I work at home, so I'm always at home when we do these recordings, but you are not usually at home when we do this.
Yeah, and when there are days off and I have to go to work, I actually do go to work because I have this habit and I think I have this thing in my mind that I cannot work from home. But now that the time has come to these times, crazy times, it's working out. I'm trying to do the best I can, and I'm not sleeping every 2 hours, so it's going fine.
Do you think you'll just switch to working at home forever then?
I'd be lying if I said the thought hasn't crossed my mind in the past few days. It does look like a better option. And then ends up saving a lot of time on a daily commute, back and forth, probably more than an hour for the commute. So we'll see. We'll
Yeah,
see
and
how this unrolls.
I know I just woke up and I got out of bed about 15 minutes before coming down to set up and record. And so another advantage of working at home is that I don't have pants on right now. All right.
For those of you who don't know about Joomla, Joomla is a CMS or a content management system for building websites. As of today's recording date, Joomla is running version 3.9.19 stable, and for Joomla 4, we have Alpha 12, which we have had for the past few episodes.
Let's meet our guests for today. Parth Lawate is the co-founder of Tekdi Technologies and has been working in the Joomla space since early 2003. Parth has been a volunteer with Joomla and has been part of several teams in Joomla, his most recent role being the strategic marketing lead. He's also instrumental in arranging Joomla events in India and regularly travels to speak about Joomla. TechJoomla is Tekdi's Joomla-focused division, which offers several category-leading extensions like Shika for e-learning, JGive for crowdfunding and donations, JTicketing for events, and ticketing to name a few. Over the years, they've done groundbreaking work using Joomla as a base from complex web portals to cloud applications and using Joomla as a backend for mobile apps.
Parth, welcome to JoomCast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tim and Chetan.
Who are you and what do you do? Give us a little glimpse of your personal life.
So, hi, I'm Parth Lawate. I'm one of the co-founders of Tekdi Technologies and TechJoomla. We started this company back when I was in college, back in 2006. At that point, we were already dabbling a little bit with PHP Nuke, I think it was, and helping a few nonprofits get their setups up and running. And we discovered we liked what we did. So that's how Tekdi was born. And we eventually decided to make a business out of it. So on the personal side, I love to read. I love to go trekking and hiking. I also garden a lot. And yeah, I love to speak about technology and help build products using Joomla and other open source stacks.
When we record these podcasts, we use Zoom, so we're not only recording the audio, but we have our videos running. So first of all, let me clarify, I do have pants on. And second of all, I can see that you're at home as well. Do you usually work at home, or is this a pandemic change for you as well?
Yeah, so this is a pandemic change. So it's not like I don't work from home, but yeah, regularly I do go to an office and work. So we have an office here and in Bangalore, and normally I work out of Pune, and I do travel to work, but it's like not much of a commute, just 5 to 7 minutes typically. And yeah, but I do work out of home, but not so much. I mean, this entire week, all of the team has been working remotely and from home. So yeah, it is a huge change. Not that I'm not used to working from home, but not this much for sure. And yeah, interesting times, challenging times, I guess. It's going to be very interesting how these things turn out in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, we're recording this on March the 20th, so by the time this comes out, the things maybe have changed in many places in the world. How did you get into doing Joomla? What is your Joomla story?
So yeah, so the Joomla story starts with a Mambo story. As the first time we used Joomla, there was no Joomla. It was still called Mambo, and we had created a non-profit portal using PHP Nuke. This was back in 2003, I believe. And while exploring other ways to do it, we stumbled upon this thing called Mambo. And I don't know if you use PHP Nuke, but if you wanted to install something, it meant probably editing 23 files in 40 different places and copy pasting different codes to get what we call an extension installed. So when we found Mambo, where you uploaded a zip which pre-installed itself and made all the changes on its own, it was like, wow, that's really powerful. So
Right.
that was a groundbreaking moment for us. I mean, probably discovering Mambo when we did also shaped what we did with our lives, because at that point, so I'm a mechanical engineer. By the time I discovered Mambo, I don't think I had even started my engineering. I still was doing my 12th standard, which is like junior college, we call that in India. Uh, so that actually influenced what I did later on, because Mambo was very interesting. We actually managed to develop a lot of interesting things on top of it. And this was before MVC. This was when it was all simple PHP, like WordPress is today. Uh, you had to hack around a lot of things, not so much flexibility, but it was so much more powerful than anything else out there. So yeah, I mean, that was, I think, one of the most powerful and open source things that we used, and that really changed our way of looking at things. And like Joomla does today, at that point also it allowed people with very less skills to achieve so much more than what their skills would have normally offered them to do. And once you actually get skilled up, then there are no limits, absolutely. And obviously, since those times, Joomla has grown so much more. So even at the times it was Joomla 1.5, I would say there were no limits. Today, with what we have in Joomla 3x, I think the horizons have just expanded.
Any notable projects you or your company have done on Joomla you want to talk about, Parth?
So what's been interesting is that while we started with Joomla, just like any integration company does, is to use it to develop websites. Over time, we delved deep into it, started developing extensions for it. That's when TechJoomla came into being, which was focused on Joomla products.
Mm-hmm.
And what has been our specialty is really building large scale applications, whether they be really large websites or even cloud applications using Joomla. So a lot of times we end up using Joomla like a framework, like you would use a Laravel or a Zend or a Symfony, where you use more of the framework and underlying layers and then build stuff on top of it. If you look at websites where actually we have really used the Joomla CMS in a powerful way, then Aadhaar would be the thing to name here. So that's UIDAI, India's identity project. So this is a government website which runs Joomla, and the latest version was done by us. So this launched around a year back, and this is one of the most, I think, highest traffic websites using Joomla across the world probably. I think it does like 50 million hits a month, and
Wow.
it is serving 17 Indian languages. So that's a big feather in the cap of Joomla. And you'll be surprised to know that we've hardly used any custom extensions in this.
Yeah, that was
This
going
is
to be my
running,
next question, if you have
yeah,
any third-party extensions on the website.
yeah. So almost none. Probably some things for uh, caching and things like that, but it's not nothing really large in there. It's all using custom fields and custom layouts, and it's built in a very interesting way. In fact, we have some case studies coming on upon that on TechJoomla soon. So every bit of the website is automated. Everything renders. I mean, it's a very interesting use case, I would say, because one of the key challenges when we got the project was that this was already built in Joomla,
Mm-hmm.
and it was using some 15 different custom extensions and had 12 odd templates to handle different languages, and I don't know what not. So I would say it was built in a very innovative way. Probably when it got built, there were limitations as to what you could do within Joomla, and I guess the earlier developers were probably constrained by that. When we redeveloped it, we migrated it over almost to a blank slate Joomla, so to say, and converted all the custom extensions to native Joomla custom fields and categories. And everything is pretty interesting. So every landing page on there is dynamically rendered from a menu. So the landing pages that you actually see on the site are menus rendered as pages, for example. So some very different ways of doing things there. One of the key things we wanted to ensure when we built this is that the content management is really easy. No content duplication happens whatsoever, and the site can scale really well. So originally when we got the site, it was running on 8 different servers to handle the load. Once we were done with it, now it runs on 6 servers. They could do away with 2 of the additional ones and still handle that load and more. Performance wise, it's much better, of course. And yeah, interesting use case. I mean, one of the biggest projects in terms of traffic that we have handled. I wouldn't say as complex in complexity because it's mainly a content website, but interesting because probably something in the range of 5 to 6 thousand odd content pieces across 17 languages. So interesting scale, but the traffic is the interesting bit here because we had to actually modify Joomla a little bit for it to be able to handle the traffic. There are some bottlenecks on how Joomla handles its sessions, which had to be modified. So a few core modifications had to be done, but I mean, yeah, it's a pretty impressive beast. Generally, what we have been able to get out.
Now that piques my curiosity. You say that it's running, you use 6 servers to run it.
Yeah.
How?
So the way that works is that it's basically load balancing. So luckily this website is completely static, right? It's mainly it's a static website. There's no dynamism on there as such. So that makes things a little simpler. All you need to really do is cache it, mirror it onto multiple servers, and put a load balancer in between that is kind of redirecting the traffic. However, if this was now a dynamic site, and we have handled dynamic websites where you need to have multiple servers serving the load, then you start small, right? So you put your web server on something else, you put your database on something else, and that's where your half your load is kind of managed. But even if that is not enough, you put something like a MySQL cluster and put a load balancer and things like that. So strategy, if it is a dynamic website that needs logins versus if it's a static website that doesn't need a login, it would change, and it's much easier with a static website really.
How do you make the static pages then?
So the pages are cached, right? So in this kind of a case, we would switch on the system cache plugin.
Oh, right. Okay, right. So the cache.
Yeah.
For a second I thought maybe you were using something that was exporting them, but of course a cache is actually just a static page.
Yeah, correct. You don't need to, because in this specific scenario, the system cache plugin does a decent job, and once the first hit on the page and that page is cached, nothing else goes back to the server for a round trip.
I actually do that on one of my sites. I have the cache set for 24 hours because it's such a, nothing changes on it, and of course I don't do it on multiple servers. So
it's almost like a static site generator situation, really. In this case, you get all the power of Joomla, cache it into a static, and there are better ways to do it, and other than the system cache plugin. But in this case, it was enough.
Now, with this high traffic, 50 plus million hits a month, what are some of the challenges you faced taking Joomla to serving this kind of traffic or something like that? Do you have any use cases there?
Yeah, so in fact, we have a case study up on the performance optimization that we did on Joomla. And some of the things, like I said, we had to change how Joomla manages its sessions. And in this case, session management wasn't important because nobody was really logging in. So we actually disabled some parts there to ensure that that became performant. And we did a lot of interesting things around caching. So we have also implemented some PWA concepts on there to handle the static asset caching. Other than that, it's been the media management has been modified a little bit so that we can actually serve static assets in a much more efficient way. However,
Mm-hmm.
not all those changes are live right now because some of them, because of the way the government handles its infrastructure, we couldn't implement. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting when you work with the government, things that are not security issues can become security issues. Things like jQuery version, for example, in Joomla is old, and Joomla patches its own version and solves the security issue, but that gets flagged as a problem. So we had to actually upgrade the jQuery on it and still make it
Oh, wow.
work. So things like that. So a lot of interesting VAPT scenarios there because you need to make it pass the government's test. Uh,
Right.
Another interesting aspect there is the government of India has something called as GIGW guidelines. So these are applicable for all government of India websites. So it's like an accessibility test, accessibility guidelines mainly. So there are a lot of interesting things that you also need to do to get to comply to that.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, as I said, this is more interesting because for Joomla, I think it's a fantastic use case. Uh, Big scale government ticks all the right boxes for Joomla to be considered seriously for these projects because it actually makes life very simple. If it was done using some other CMS, the effort and cost to do this would have probably gone 2.5 to 3x. Uh, Joomla was a perfect fit for this because exactly what they needed could be fit in within what is available natively. And a lot of the customization was mainly around layouts and filters using fields. And everything else, Joomla was able to offer pretty decently out of the box. And the other extremes are projects where, this is a case where the idea was no custom extensions. You want to use the CMS as best as possible. And then we have other cases where we have built cloud products on top of Joomla, where other than the Joomla user management and probably menu management, everything else we build is really custom extensions. So an interesting one would be where we built a cloud-based virtual interview tool using Joomla, which allowed
Mm-hmm.
you to create virtual interviews. So you could set up an interview, let people come in, record their own interviews, and then have people access it. So very different use case. Again, Joomla, but that is more like application development use case than a website use case.
So, where do you see yourself or Joomla 5 years from now?
So 5 years from now, I would hope that as far as Joomla goes, so I've always, I don't know if you have read my blog on this, but there's a pretty in-depth blog that I wrote about where should Joomla be going around a couple of years back, which I call the sustainable ecosystem for Joomla. And what I do believe is that for us, Joomla has been really great in both senses. So we would love to see it compete with the likes of Drupal and be used for really large scale projects, which hasn't been the volume use case for Joomla. Most of the people using Joomla are integrators and they use it for smaller projects. But Joomla has the capacity to be used for larger projects, which gives them the ability to gain more revenue out of it because that is where the bigger budgets are. So I where I would like it to go is probably head in a headless CMS kind of a direction with JavaScript frameworks being used to drive the front ends, uh, and that is where I would love to see it going. Of course, will it go there is a different question. The community will probably decide that. But what we already do with Joomla is use it in a headless way using the COM API extension that we have. So COM API is one of the first REST API implementations that TechJoomla did years back. So we have had it from the Joomla 1.5 times, which offered a REST API interface for Joomla. So we have been using it like that for a long time now. And it's definitely possible. Hopefully, with the web services in core in Joomla 4, those kind of gates will open up, and Joomla will be considered as a serious contender in a lot of these cases. So that's what I would say about Joomla. As far as us in 5 years, so we have been diversifying a lot. We are doing a lot of exciting things with Joomla, but we are also doing a lot of things with Node.js and AngularJS and on the development side of things. So we are also in the midst of evolving a JavaScript-based product that is kind of like Joomla, but lets you do stuff using JavaScript. Because one of the key things that we are seeing is that if you're hiring engineers today, uh, they will want to work on a modern stack. And today, anything on PHP is kind of facing this issue that it needs to be exciting enough to get new developers to it, which without having a JavaScript stack is a little hard because that's what most of the new kids on the block want to do today. So they will either want to
Right.
delve into the AI and ML or do something with JavaScript and use Angular or React or something like that. So luckily for us, we started the transition around 4 or 5 years back. Of course, we do a lot of Joomla, and TechJoomla is exclusive to Joomla, as I said. But at Tekdi, we have been doing a lot of things with other stuff as well, where we use a Drupal or a Laravel-based projects where it's PHP. We'll also do a lot of work with Node.js and Angular and React. We're also doing some interesting things with AI/ML now. So I see 5 years out is probably, I mean, things are changing so fast. I don't know. I mean, with the pandemic going on right now, what we'll be doing 5 weeks from now. So
Yes.
5 years,
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I think things should be very exciting. Technology is changing at a crazy pace. We are also doing some interesting things with Alexa, for example, where we are developing Alexa skills with our LMS, where you can learn on the go with voice. So a lot of interesting innovations, not all Joomla, but a lot of them do end up getting powered by Joomla because in Tekdi we have something that we call as a philosophy, which we call as the spirit of open source, which means that uh, almost everything we do is based on an open source stack. If there is any project we do that uses open source, we try and make sure that we contribute back to it in some way or the other. And there's a lot of feeding back that goes into it. So one thing I know for sure is that 5 years down the line, we will still hopefully be doing Joomla, but we'll definitely be doing a lot of open source because that is like the core of the company. And whatever else we do, anything new we invent, also ends up being open sourced. So that's definitely there for sure.
Now, you mentioned something that I learned a couple of months ago or first became aware of, and that is that the developers that are out there, especially the younger developers that are coming up, are excited to work on the latest stuff. And that is something that drives them for development. And yet, in the context of an open source community like Joomla, when people aren't programmers, they don't have that same attraction to the latest stuff, and that it creates a little bit of tension at times.
Yeah, it does, and I think that the reason is because you should really study how Joomla evolved to kind of understand that bit. So if you look at it, when Joomla 1.5 came out, it had a lot of interesting things for the integrators, but it had a lot of interesting things for the developers. That's why the extension community boomed. Uh, and it's a chicken and egg, right? So you get so many powerful extensions, you have more integrators flocking to the community. So it kind of fed itself, right? And then that scaled up like crazy. And at that point, there was nothing else. So Joomla was able to really get a lot of mileage out of that. So I believe that extension developers, it is what actually gives Joomla the strength because it's the powerful functionality around the CMS that is going to drive those other use cases. Because if somebody wants to build a basic website today, Joomla probably can become an overkill, right? And I always talk about this that if you look at how the internet has evolved in the last 10 years, 10 years ago, people on the internet were geeks versus today, the internet is full of consumers who are looking at actually getting something that they can use today. They are more interested in a Facebook page that will take their business online right now or at the most a week because I can get that for $5 a month and I don't have to invest and I don't have to think about upgrades. Uh, so you have to kind of look at it that way. You need to understand how the evolution works. So if you imagine that on the right hand side, or let's rather look at the bottom of the pyramid. So that's where your consumers are. That's where the volumes are, and any product that is serving the needs of those consumers is going to get a lot of high volume. So something like a Wix or a Facebook page sits right there, where any consumer can just pick it up and start using it. Why WordPress is successful, for example, is that it's way closer to the consumer base than Joomla can ever be because it's the WordPress.com is just a blogging tool. Anybody can go sign up and start using it. Even if you install your own WordPress, it's still seen closer to the consumer ecosystem where anybody can go in and spin up a website. Joomla isn't positioned like that. It was always positioned as an integrators tool. It was positioned for serious websites, and WordPress ate into that market, right? So what ended up happening is that people who were doing WordPress, and they got in very quickly because there was no entry barrier. It's very easy to get started with WordPress. Uh, and Joomla, it's perceived not that easy. So where I'm coming from is that you need to understand who your market is. So the challenge I think we face as a community is that for the core product to evolve, you need good developers actually creating the code behind it. Our community, and again, I always have this, we always had these debates in the marketing team that is our community our market? And I believe the market is not our community, and we don't listen to the market, we listen to the community. And I think that's where we probably go wrong, because the community is a set of people who love Joomla, but and they are probably also some of the key people using Joomla and taking it to the market. But that's not the whole market, and unless we listen to the market, we won't know where to take this product. Otherwise, the product will only go as far as the community sees. And because we are a community of integrators, and as I said, very few people in Joomla actually use it to the scale it could be. Maybe it means upskilling the community so that they can take on the bigger projects. Maybe they can learn some development, whatever it takes. That will actually change this outlook, because if the community says let's not do a React, or JavaScript is not for us, the market is not going to wait around. Because if the market is, and the market gets driven two ways, right? If you need modern progressive web applications today, and if Ionic or JavaScript or some other framework is the right way to build it, you can't keep insisting that we are not going to do that. I mean, it's fine to say that, but then you are okay to say that I don't want that market. But I think what ends up happening is that we as a community on some level do want those projects. We do want Joomla to be getting used there, but it will mean taking some hard steps. And what is very interesting is that if you look at how Drupal is doing things, or how WordPress is doing things, and I've always seen WordPress as being very, very user-centric. It will always do something. It will never do something that hurts its users. For example, it carried around PHP 4 for such a long time, though it was a security risk. It still doesn't revamp a lot of its code because it will break backward compatibility. So it cares a lot for its end users. It will probably try and never do like a migration scenario. Versus if you look at Drupal doesn't really directly care about its end users. It cares about its users who are actually enterprise companies who are building big stuff using Drupal. And if you looked at Drupal, you go from Drupal 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, it's always a migration. So Drupal is saying that you'll always get cutting edge technology, but you'll need to change every 3 years. And only if you have budgets to do that, come to us. So Drupal in a way is built for agencies that want to make money, and these agencies want to upgrade stuff every 3 years. In case of Joomla, we are not sure who we are loyal to. Are we loyal to the end users who we want to ensure will never have a migration? Or are we loyal to the developers where they want new technology all the time? And that gets us confused, right? What are we going to do? So that way what ends up happening is that because we don't have that clarity of mind, and the problem is that if you go back to Joomla 1.5, 1.0 to 1.5 was a migration. That didn't lose its users, that actually got us users. Because it was a migration that was done in time, it made sense, and it brought a lot of benefit. So it wasn't a migration for the sake of it. The benefits it brought, nobody remembers the 1.0 to 1.5 migration that much as compared to the 1.5 to 2.5 one, because the 1.5 to 2.53 created an exodus of people leaving. But at the same time, that migration didn't bring that many benefits. Or probably it wasn't handled in a way, or it could have been handled better. I don't think there is any there's any point crying over spilt milk there. But we have to basically look at where we want to go from here. And at some point, we will reach that stage where we will have to migrate and give value. Because at this point, if Joomla 4 is a migration, does it add enough value to my customer? Is there a good enough benefit in migrating to it? That's going to be a big challenge for us in Joomla. And I think that's something that we need to figure out. Or at least we need to make sure that Joomla 4 is not a migration in that case, if it's not going to be enough of a benefit. So there is this concept of tech debt in technology, which means that over time, any technology product accumulates something that is called as technical debt, which means that there is an ideal way of doing things, but because of various circumstances, you're not able to do it in the ideal way. and that creates debt, which is going to cost you some time. And it just depends on you whether you're going to take that cost now or you're going to take it 10 years down the line. So WordPress faces the same dilemma, right? So a lot of tech debt in there, code base that has not matured as much, nothing, no MVC in there and things like that. So when they did the bit where I think WordPress.com, they converted to React, right? So the backends. So what's very interesting is that when you create an API layer and build your front end in JavaScript, now you're free to change the backend. So today, if WordPress said that now let's get rid of the old code base, we have an API layer in between, our entire front end works of JavaScript. Now let's change the underlying layer that makes the API. As long as the API output stays the same, none of our users are going to get affected. And of course, it's not going to be that easy, but it's a very interesting decision because they said that we don't want to affect our end users. So how do we make sure we get rid of this tech debt? So let's build the API layer in between. Let's make sure the front end runs off the APIs. And then the backend code can be changed. I mean, tomorrow, if they switch from PHP to Node.js, the end users, I mean, yes, the community that uses PHP to create its extensions will get affected, but the WordPress.com end users, they're not going to feel the difference because they'll make sure all their core community plugins and anything that they use is migrated over as well. So by creating this abstraction layer, they have actually created a layer that is protecting the end consumers. And that is a very interesting decision. Drupal also faced the similar issue. So Drupal was on its own framework till I think Drupal 7. With Drupal 8, they did the Symfony thing where they just junked their code base and migrated everything to an existing PHP framework, which meant that there was going to be a huge amount of migration. So that I think was very interesting because now the entire Symfony community is with Drupal. Now any Symfony developer can become a Drupal developer. So these are very interesting decisions. These are not small decisions. These are never easy decisions. If you look at what WordPress did with React, and at that point there was a big scare in the WordPress community as to what's going to happen and stuff like that. Same thing happened with the new editor that they brought, where there was a lot of pullaboo and if this is going to change everything. But eventually the community reconciled and adapted to it. And these big decisions is what will keep them relevant going forward. So it's going to be interesting to see that does Joomla need those kind of decisions? Are we as a community going to be strong enough to take those kind of decisions as well? Because that's the thing, right? In Joomla, we don't have any kind of a benevolent dictator who can take these decisions for us. And we need to kind of do that thinking ourselves. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see, that can we evolve? Can we take the decisions that the next few years will need us to take? Sorry for that big monologue, but
No, but that was really good, Parth. We were expecting that because we do see Tim and I notes from you in the Joomla chit chat, and when you comment, and those kind of make sense with speaking to you now, as far as where Joomla is headed. Whether that's a disaster or a fairy tale, I don't know. But we are all trying to figure out where it's headed.
Yeah, so it definitely won't be a disaster because see, the problem with these kind of things is that if we don't change, it will eventually die out. It's not going to be an overnight thing. There's plenty of people who still need something like what Joomla offers. It's about, are we ready for the next wave of people coming in? So it's not going to be like a sudden death.
Let me ask you this. What about WordPress? You said WordPress hasn't changed. It still uses a lot of legacy code, but it's growing better than ever, right?
It is because it is loyal to its end users, right? So when you need a big technology switch, you need to be ready for it and you need to make it on time. That's always the key thing. And it's okay to be, more loyal to the end users than to the developers, as long as you're solving the end user's problem. But I think it's also about what we focus on from a market share perspective. So if you look at Drupal, it is loyal to technology, but it only powers around 1% of the web, right? But it's happy with that market share. It ensures that the 1% is, out of the top 100,000 websites, Drupal eats a fair share. Of course, even WordPress is getting eaten into that. But if you even look at WordPress has been facing the heat from Wix and cloud-based competitors. And if you look at the decisions WordPress has made in the last few years, and with the interesting, if you look at the investments in that space, kind of people. So Salesforce, I think, made an investment into
Right.
Acquia a few years back.
Right.
So those things kind of point to a different future, right? Because uh, it's going to get interesting because I think WordPress is almost like become ubiquitous with the web in the sense that any website is basically WordPress, right? Uh, and it has, if you look at it, its growth, uh, it's probably not, it's slowed down comparatively if you look at the earlier years, but it's not tapering. I mean, in case of Joomla, it's been flat for the last few years. So if we were to actually explore why WordPress is succeeding and why Joomla isn't, is going to be an interesting question. I don't think I have an answer to that, or I don't think I have that solved properly. But probably it's again, it comes down to those simple things, right? As I said, it's closer to the consumer ecosystem, so it's bound to get higher numbers. So that's the positioning bit. If Joomla, somebody were to take Joomla and create a distribution that did something that WordPress does and better, then probably in that with that distribution might have a chance. But is that a good space to play in today? I'm not sure because that's already a very crowded ecosystem already between WordPress and all the site builders out there. Today, is that a good thing to do? I'm not very sure.
So we've talked a lot about where things are going and trying to look into the future. What is something that you have learned later in life that you would go back and tell a younger you?
Hmm, interesting. Live life, work less, probably, which most of us will tell ourselves. But I don't think I've learned. Probably 10 years later, I'll still be telling the new current me the same thing. So, yeah.
In 10 years, you would come back to today and then tell yourself to go back 10 years and tell yourself to live life.
Live life 10 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, I have still not come to terms with that, I guess.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Parth, so from your bio, and you talked about this earlier in the podcast as well. You spoke about giving back to the open source, and in your bio, you wrote about you ask your team members, your employees, to make sure they give back to an open source project every
Yeah,
month
the
at
salary
least.
depends on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The salary depends on
So
it.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about it. How do you enforce something like that without making sure that the primary work that they're supposed to, their projects or whatever sprints they're working on, they don't get impacted, but then they also have the freedom to choose the project they want to contribute to?
A lot goes into how we design projects because, as I said, I mean, any projects that we work on, the whole idea is, and whether it's our own products that we use or it's projects that we do for others, a lot of it is about which open source piece can add the most value there. And once we actually identify that and do a gap analysis, so let's say you say that, let's use product X, and what the customer needs is product X plus ABC, then the ABC bit is broken down to see what out of the ABC can be contributed back to the product and what needs to be custom. So this thought goes into every piece that is designed, which ensures that there is enough open source contributions to do across the board, because that goes in the core architecture design itself.
Instead of specifically writing code to contribute back, you do your project in a manner so part of it can be contributed back to the project itself.
Yeah, and it's also very interesting because this is actually cheaper for customers in the long run, because
Right.
the more code that actually goes back into the open source ecosystem, it gets more maintainers. It's not
Right.
the customer's project only maintaining it. And
Right.
out of
Yeah,
this,
better it is.
it,
Right.
yeah. So over the years, TechJoomla and Tekdi have evolved a large stack of open source products, so to say, which are not all, a lot of them are free, which are all on our GitHub, for example, COM API or the reporting tools that we have. A lot of the enterprise stack we use in our Joomla projects is open source. And a lot of times people are just contributing to that, or they're contributing to core Joomla, or they might be contributing to a library they're using. So because so much dogfooding happens and there is a lot of emphasis on code reuse, and anytime code is reused, there's always opportunities to improve it. It's as simple as that. So if you can design projects in the right way, you can find ways to contribute in a sustainable way without having to spend special time on it.
Because I think that's what happened with Akiba as well. So in Joomla, Tim, we have this thing called Framework on Framework, FOF. It's a library. And I think it was written originally by Nicholas at Akiba Backup, which he contributed back to the project. And also the Joomla Updater is also something they wrote for updating Akiba Backup, which ended up eventually contributing back to the project. Yeah.
So one thing just I would like people, I mean, if you want to read on how you can implement this in your projects, there is a talk that I give on the spirit of open source. It's on YouTube. You can just Google up my name and the spirit of open source. It explains the entire process as to how to do this. Maybe you guys can put it in the link to the podcast or something.
Yeah, we're going to put in the show notes. We'll make sure we have a link to that. That brings us to rapid fire. Ow!
Ooh.
It's a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you questions. You give an answer, whatever comes to your mind real quick. Try to limit it to one sentence or one word if possible.
Okay.
Other than the usual Joomla suspects, name your favorite Joomla extension.
I would say probably the cache cleaner extension.
What is an extension you'd like to see developed that does not exist in the Joomla space right now?
Oh, we'll probably develop it.
Well, throw that idea out. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know right now, frankly.
Oh, so
Okay.
that's too bad, because if you'd had one to pick, I could have developed it this afternoon for you.
I'll message you, Tim.
What is one thing that you'd like to change in Joomla, assuming you were in charge?
Probably put out a clear roadmap and put in some processes to ensure it's followed. And as I said, maybe take some hard decisions after ensuring a thorough impact analysis has been done around it to ensure that Joomla gets a bright future.
Parth, what is something you like or love about Joomla?
So I love the power it gives me. I love, what you can build with it with very limited resources. And then if you can develop on top of it, as I said, the limits are really, it's limitless, so to say. I mean, I love to say that Joomla is like clay. You can build anything you want with it.
Name someone who contributes a lot to Joomla.
So many people. But yeah, I would like to call out Luca. He's the Joomla secretary. I mean, he's been, he I think does a job a lot of people would hate. Handles all the legal stuff, ensures things. I mean, not the typical developer type contribution, but he keeps things running.
Yeah, when we interviewed him and I heard how much he does, I know that in the election when no one challenged him, when no one challenges for a position, people say, "Oh, no one's interested. No one wants to get involved." But actually, once I heard what he was doing, I figured the reason no one challenged him is because no one wants that job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the end of rapid fire.
I'm really sorry.
Parth, is there anything we didn't ask you that you'd like to mention or talk about?
So yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about TechJoomla and what we do there in terms of what kind of products we have. Generally, what we've been trying to do at TechJoomla is even there we follow a lot of this trade of open source, and a lot of our extensions are built on something we call as infrastructure extensions. So if you look at what Joomla does, things like COM users or COM categories, these are what I call infrastructure extensions, which an e-commerce cart can come and say that I'll use your user management, I'll use the categories from or tagging from Joomla and build things on top. So at TechJoomla, we have evolved a lot of free horizontal extensions or infrastructure extensions as we call them. So would be great if we can actually get more people to use those extensions and contribute to them. So these are all free on our GitHub. You can find things like COM API, which gives you a REST API on Joomla. There is a full-fledged reporting engine, which gives you reporting via APIs, CSV exports, a full configurable reporting engine, generated reports. We have some 20 odd extensions like that, which a lot of the extension developers as well as service project developers out there can leverage. And we have been able to build some really cool stuff with it. So for example, Shika, our LMS, is actually a package of some 6 or 7 odd extensions, which together build it up. So almost all our extensions are packages now. They are not unit pieces. They leverage each other's strengths to give more value to the users. So that's been a very interesting way to build things. So We have been able to implement it on our products as well as projects we do. And we have found that that's a good way to work. It's a way to get more done with less code. And that's something that we would like everybody to follow.
How can people reach out to you, Parth?
So I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Parth Lawate. So that's ParthLawate. You can also email me at the email parth@tekditechnologies.com.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast today and for everything that you contribute to Joomla.
Thank you so much. It was nice being here.
Well, Chetan, there we go. We've wrapped up another episode of JoomCast. I really enjoy that. I really learned a bunch of stuff and also added to some stuff that I've only recently become aware of. Parth is a pretty smart guy. I like the cut of his jib. Do you know what that means?
I do not.
I don't really know what it means either, but it basically means, I like the way he does things. I like his angle.
That I know what that means. But do you have anything excited planned for the rest of the day, Tim?
Well, I'm going to be at home. What about you?
Nothing. I haven't actually gone out of the house here in last 28 hours. I think I might go for a walk in the morning or something. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy with this COVID thing. Everyone's shutting down, and I think it's gonna be a few months before things pick back up. Again, we can't predict, but yeah, that's the least I can tell.
So everybody out there, take care of yourself, be safe, and thanks for tuning in today.
JoomCast is recorded live on locations using Zoom, Audacity, and a bent coat hanger to keep it from dragging on the road. This week it was India, and Canada. If you want to reach me personally, my Twitter handle is @ChetanMadan. And if you want to reach Tim, he can be reached at Basic Joomla. Until next time, enjoy your Joomla sites.
God bless.